What if I told you? The company leading the AI revolution almost didn't survive. Today, NVIDIA is one of the most valuable companies on Earth. Its chips power artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, and the world's fastest supercomputers. But just a few decades ago, it was a tiny startup, running out of money, fighting to survive. No one believed graphics processors would change the world. Yet against all odds, NVIDIA transformed from a small Silicon Valley startup into one of the most important technology companies in human history. How did it happen? This is the origin story of NVIDIA. Before NVIDIA became the company powering artificial intelligence, it was just an idea. Silicon Valley, 1993. Most engineers believed the future belonged to faster CPUs. Intel was king, and almost nobody cared about graphics. But three engineers saw the future differently. Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Preem. Instead of asking, how can computers become faster? They asked a completely different question. What if computers could think visually? It sounded crazy. At the time, the video game industry was still young. Most computers struggled to display simple 3D graphics. Yet these three engineers believed graphics processing would one day become one of the most important technologies on Earth. They rented a tiny office, worked long days, and even longer nights. Money was disappearing fast. Success was never guaranteed. In fact, most startups in Silicon Valley failed within their first few years. NVIDIA looked like it would become one of them, but the founders had one thing their competitors didn't. They were building for a future no one else could see. That belief would soon be tested. In 1995, NVIDIA introduced its first product, the NV1. The team believed it would change everything. But there was one problem. The market didn't agree. The NV1 was unlike anything else. Instead of following the industry standard, NVIDIA chose a completely different approach to 3D graphics. It was a bold decision, but it turned into a disaster. Game developers refused to support it. Customers ignored it. Sales were terrible. Money was disappearing. Investors were losing confidence. Inside the company, the pressure was unbearable. Every day felt like it could be the last. For a young startup with limited cash, one failed product could mean the end. NVIDIA was running out of time, and the founders had to make the most important decision in the company's history. Everything had gone wrong. The NV1 had failed. Money was running out. The company had one final chance. There was no time for another mistake. Instead of giving up, the team made a painful decision. They abandoned everything they had built. Months of work, countless hours, all thrown away. They started over, from scratch. This time, they listened to the market. They designed a graphics chip that developers actually wanted. Every engineer knew failure was no longer an option. The pressure inside NVIDIA was unlike anything they had experienced before. Long days became sleepless nights. Every line of code, every circuit, every decision could determine whether the company survived. Then, after months of relentless work, NVIDIA introduced a new graphics processor, the Riva 128. This time, everything changed. The chip was fast, affordable, easy for developers to support. Customers finally noticed. Sales exploded. For the first time, NVIDIA wasn't just surviving, it was winning. The success of the Riva 128 changed everything. For the first time, NVIDIA had proven it could compete. The company was no longer fighting just to survive. It was fighting to lead. With every new generation of graphics cards, performance improved. Developers trusted NVIDIA. Gamers noticed the difference. And slowly, the company's reputation began to grow. But Jensen Huang wasn't thinking about the next product. He was thinking about the next decade. While competitors focused only on gaming, NVIDIA invested in something much bigger: programmable graphics processors. It sounded like another risky decision. Many people believed graphics cards should only render games. But NVIDIA saw another future. A graphics processor could solve complex scientific problems, process enormous amounts of data, and one day, power artificial intelligence. Years before the AI revolution, NVIDIA was already preparing for it. Most people didn't realize it yet, but the company was quietly building the future. Today, NVIDIA is no longer just a graphics card company. Its technology powers artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, scientific research, medical breakthroughs, and some of the fastest supercomputers ever built. The company that almost disappeared became the company helping shape the future. But perhaps the most important lesson isn't about technology. It's about vision. When everyone else saw graphics chips, NVIDIA saw the future of computing. When others focused on the next product, they prepared for the next generation. And when failure seemed inevitable, they refused to quit. Every technology giant has an origin. Every success begins with a risk. And sometimes, the companies that change the world are the ones that survive their darkest moments. This was the origin story of NVIDIA, and this is only the beginning.